Hey friends, Pastor Bill Walden here with Build Up the Church. This is January the 16th, 2024. Hope you're doing great. Some thoughts for you out of the Gospel of Matthew chapter 12. Jesus and his disciples were going through the grain fields on the Sabbath. Sabbath was a day of rest for the Jews. And his disciples were hungry, and they began to pick some of the heads of grain and eat them. This wasn't stealing. God had commanded in the Old Testament that farmers should not totally reap every bit of fruit out of their fields. God in the Old Testament had kind of a built-in welfare system for people, and so God said to the landowners, don't take every bit of food out of the corners or the edges of your field. Let poor people come, and if they're walking by your field and they're hungry, let them take a couple of handfuls, and whether it be grapes or whatever it would be, wheat, whatever it would be, and let them eat. And so God was concerned. God was very concerned, still is, very concerned about people's sustenance. And so God built in the Old Testament a way for people who were traveling or had need to be able to eat for free. So Jesus' disciples and Jesus, they were doing this on the Sabbath day, holy day of rest for the Jews. The Pharisees saw it and they said, look, your disciples are doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath. So from their point of view, and these guys were very religious, they were very, very interested in law and behavior and technicalities, and we would say crossing every T and dotting every I. They believed that the disciples and Jesus were breaking the Sabbath because they considered that as they plucked the heads of grain that they were harvesting, it was like a harvest. When you're harvesting a crop, that's work. When you're plucking a head of grain, that's not like a harvest. But they said you're harvesting. They're separating the wheat from the chaff, and they said so you're winnowing and you're working, and then you're putting it in your mouth, and that means like you're preparing food. And so they said basically you're breaking the law of the Sabbath. This is what religion does. Religion doesn't, man-made religion, I should say. And let me be very careful about that, because there is a God-ordained religion. In the book of James, we read about it taking care of widows and orphans, that's a godly religion, and other things as well. But there is a man-made religion which takes the letter of the law, which is designed to guide us through life. But man-made religion uses it as a weapon, as a burden, as a heavy thing to put on people. And so the Pharisees were doing that with Jesus, and Jesus answered them in verses 3 through 8. And I'll let you read that on your own for the sake of just a short devotional here. But Jesus answered them perfectly. He said, hey, David did the same thing when he went to the temple, when he went to the tabernacle and ate the bread that was only for the priests. Listen, God is concerned with right and wrong, but God is extremely concerned with the welfare and the benefit and the life of human beings. Modern day religion will put burdens on people. One of the things that I've noticed in some of the Latin American countries that I visit, in some churches, also in Africa, there's kind of an expected dress code, and some of the phrases that you might hear is, if you're going to be serious with God, you better dress up when you're coming to church. You better do your best for God. That kind of idea. Is it okay to dress up for church? Absolutely. But the poor man doesn't have a chance. So a culture can be created of religiosity that is intended to perhaps raise the intentions of those who are able to meet the suggestion, but it puts outside those who don't have the means to meet the suggestion or the man-made law. And so people are excluded. They're not included, they're excluded. And so, in my life, in your life, let's be very, very careful, shall we, if you're a follower of Jesus, to understand the spirit of the law and not just use the letter of the law and amplify the letter of the law beyond reason to make life more difficult for people. That's going backwards. Jesus wouldn't have any of it, and he hated it. And he intentionally kind of did miracles sometimes in front of people. Read Matthew chapter 12. It's amazing. He heals a man's hand in the synagogue on the Sabbath day. And he knew that it would make them angry, and he did it anyway, because he's concerned for mankind. And now, if I had a little sinful look on my face, forgive me. I don't think Jesus had a sinful intention, but he certainly wanted to show the religious leaders who would rather see a man suffer another day than seeing him healed, just because of their man-made laws. So man-made religion misses the spirit of God's word, and it puts burdens on people. Let's be careful to not be those kinds of people. Let's accept people where they're at. And as we accept them where they're at, let's lead them to Jesus and let Jesus have his way in their life. So, some thoughts for you. God bless you. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.